Welcome to Going Green, our weekly podcast having a look at green matters. And today we're going to have a look at racing for the future. Now, what we're actually going to look at is something which we've discovered relatively recently, and we've been quite keen fans of this, and this is SailGP.
Yeah, so SailGP, just very briefly, is essentially it's the Formula One of sailing in essence, and there's lots of information about it, and you can go and watch it, and great little bit of laugh and great sort of, but it's a team sport which is different than F1. Anyway, glance of it. Anyway, this new season 2, they introduced this thing called the Impact League.
We also want to remind you it's not just about the race on the water. SailGP is also racing for purpose and impact off. New Zealand SailGP team has led the leaderboard since inception, winning the race for the future and won the last of it in Saint-Tropez, as all these teams are trying to reduce their carbon footprint on shore as we travel around the world for SailGP season number 2.
And basically, the Impact League isn't what anything. It's actually all about how the teams themselves can do a positive change to the environment, but it's basically to reduce their carbon footprint and to reduce all matters of ways to make the sport, or more precisely the sailing of it, sustainable. And
they got a prize for it as well, won't they?
Yeah. Eventually, at the end of the season, they'll be awarded because they get given points. Now, it's one of those odd things where they get given points on how much they save compared to how much so basically they're generating more and more points, as opposed to not having like golf scores where you have the least points, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So they're looking at all sorts of sustainability criteria with both the social sort of, well, there is some sort of social interaction there, environmental, and they're operating basically against each other team to try and see who can do the best. They're trying to remove all single-use plastics. They're trying to sort of also do diversity, inclusion, and trying to, as they say, use the team's voice for good. That's the quote from the thing. But at the moment, who's in the lead, Paul?
So I can tell you, with their little league table, as of the 11th of, I presume, September, but it could be the 9th of November. We'll glance over which date format they're using.
Yeah. It's 11/9/2021. So we don't know. But we're gonna pretend.
But there's the date. You can find whatever the thing is.
It's the 9th of the 11th, I'm sure.
I'm sure, but I'm not
absolutely sure.
Absolutely.
And who's in the lead?
Anyway.
Oh dear.
Yeah. Anyway, I was coughing because in the lead is Team New Zealand, and they're at 895 points.
And in second place?
Second is Great Britain with 447 points. Australia is in third with 829 points.
Okay. And down the bottom is Denmark.
Denmark, who are at 684 points. So you can see they range from the system, and basically every time they do something wonderful, they get assessed and they get given points for it. So it's not I wouldn't say a fair system. That's the wrong way. It's not sort of, you had a cereal or a cardboard cereal bar as opposed to one of these ones in the wrapper. That's 5 points, sort of like,
Yeah, but they do. They are judged on what they eat and, how they get to places, how much fuel they use. And it is fair, I suppose, because basically sailing is all about going around the coasts. They have little races and they are spectacular, getting up to what speed was it we saw?
Well, it can range from what is it, 30 miles an hour.
Knots.
Or 30 knots, sorry, all the way up to nearly 80, 90 knots. It's quite a...
And at 90 knots, these boats were going with a crew of about 5.
Yeah, but the critical thing of why they're doing this Impact League isn't actually for the reason you think. It's because, yes, they do the sailing, but they're trying to raise awareness, because all the places where they sail at, all these ports, Saint-Tropez, Plymouth, Sydney Harbour, all the places where they go and do all the sailing at, those places are subject to or being threatened by the increase in sea level. And with a rise of 0.5 metre, which is what is expected within the next, decade? Or is it 2?
Yeah.
Iffy. Anyway, these places could affect, the sea level rise would effectively, will affect, they estimate, sort of 5 million people.
And it won't do very good for their races either, will it? Because it's going to be more difficult for them. So they're trying to raise awareness here, and they're auditing every aspect of their sustainability that they can. And the crews are actually working hard against each other to try and see who can win this.
Yeah,
there's quite a lot of competition on that.
Yes, and that's fair enough. You want a competition, you want this three. And one of the major things of they were doing this was because they wanted to work out how to do it, if that makes any sense. It's more of a sort of, they said that this year, or more precisely, at the end of this season, there's going to be a complete review of the Impact League to make it not fairer, but to make it better as...
Well, they've never done it before, so they don't know
what's worth points and what's... Anyway, but the crucial thing they're trying to do with this Impact League is almost to set a case study to actually, for other sports, to actually show that they can do their sustainable, but within their league, within teams, however they want to do it, to show off that it is possible to be, racing these fantastic things.
They're fantastic boats, aren't they?
Exactly. But, it is also to say we can do, it doesn't have to be necessarily a racing team or things. It could be a sports team, like a rugby team. They could do if suddenly the football league brings this in, it's then going to be a massive hoo-ha, and hopefully, depending on if the league or this Impact League generates prizes and awards and all these sorts of things, that perhaps this might make a difference in the other sports and actually make a difference globally anyway.
Well, we live in hope, because there's F1 racing, and we know at the moment they're sort of getting this F1 sort of electric cars going. Formula E. And that's sort of, as far as I've been seeing, not making a significant sort of inroads, but standard Formula One racing, they look at the amount of fuel they use. You look at the amount of sort of tyre degradation, various other things. Yes, it makes the sport a little bit more fun, but can we not have a lot of fun, but also have basically a little bit of sustainability in this as well?
Yeah, so this is what the entire Impact League was designed to do. It was say, create a blueprint, and then that blueprint can be transferred. If, let's say, you do F1 on that, they create their own sort of Impact League, just think of how much that could do for it because of how large a sport F1 is. And if F1 brings that in, then all the other motorsports might slowly bring that in.
I could just imagine having a thing that you do better if you didn't drive your sort of top-of-the-range sort of 6-litre Mercedes somewhere. Instead, you could see some of the Formula One drivers arriving on a bicycle or something.
Yeah, it's all those sorts of things, absolutely. But we're more. But it's such a interesting concept in regards to it's not just the teams that run the impact. It's also the sport itself, but obviously the sport cannot generate a sort of coalition or sort of, we've done so well.
But this is a new sport, isn't it?
It's a new idea.
So it's a new sport, new ideas, and they've tried to tackle this head on, because what you see written on a boat is the important words. It says, powered by nature.
Oh, yes.
And that's probably where it sort of started, this idea that these boats are just powered by the wind. They don't have big motors. They're not using lots of fuel to actually do the race. It's all about man and sort of against the sea and against the wind. And it's great fun. It's good fun to watch. And at those speeds, I've watched some sailing before, and you watch the sailing boat go past very slowly, and they think they're going quite quick. But when I watch some of these things doing a 15-minute race and doing sort of up to 90 sort of knots going along,
as I said, they're
fantastic.
As fast, these things, as an F1 car. Yeah.
Comparatively,
in regards to straight line speed. And well, who comparing them is good, because what they're 50. I think they're 50 meters now, or 50.
Yeah, something like
something daft. They're anyway, compared to an F1 car, which is sort of
not many meters,
engine and man length in total length. It's not very long, but it's going back. It's being creative and sort of working out and using things and ideas about how you can demonstrate change or introduce change that doesn't sort of, I wouldn't say push the boat out, but it sort of makes people think if they can do it, and sailing's an expensive sport in itself, then why can't other sports do it? So knowing this happens requires some, not changes, but basically other people to sort of take the idea on board and say, right, we're going to do some sort of leadership, because in sport they talk about all this stuff about leadership and all those sorts of things. Why aren't sports demonstrating this leadership in climate?
If we could get something like football, soccer to take on this idea, this would have a major impact. And it's looking then at not just the sport, but it's the life cycle of all and not the life cycle so much, but also the lifestyle of all the players and people involved, not just the team, but all the whole team, everyone that's involved in producing something. And if we brought it into soccer, then it also means that could they sort of persuade their spectators to also take part? And that would have a large impact on this whole country and what we could do.
Oh, not even just this country, but maybe even the
world.
Worldwide. We're talking about in things. England has just qualified for the World Cup. So at least we know that's going to be happening next year. For better or for worse, we will glance over that. But if the World Cup did a sustainability league in regards to all these things, it could slowly speed down and do something. It's all about, we've just come from the COPs 26, and it was all about all the leaders showing off out of what they could do,
and a few trying to stop it.
But it was a matter of countries trying to show leadership in doing this, and people moaning that they're not showing leadership. But it's a matter of, could sport take leadership? You got to see, change doesn't change unless someone changes it.
Yeah. People don't like change, do they? And if you can force someone to do something, then that's good. And if you see your sports idol doing something, then they do it. We've seen this in football with certain footballers sort of moaning about various bits and pieces, and a few of them actually then doing something. And when they've done something, there's been a significant impact. If they could do this with sustainability, then that could be sort of a leap and bound ahead for the whole world. So if you want to watch this sailing Grand Prix, the next race is taking part in Sydney Harbour, I believe.
It is Sydney Harbour.
And it's taking place on the 17th and 18th of December. And it's the 7th event of their 8 events, is it?
I think they're 8 events.
8 events, yeah. And they've got, at the moment, 8 teams. And next year, we've been told that there are going to be even more teams taking part.
Yeah, got two new ones on. Yeah, so won't change this into a sports podcast, but we'll glance over that. But yes, new teams means more membership in the Impact League, but it means that more teams are showing off what they can do, and you might find suddenly that these things bring different ideas, and they might radically change up the league, and suddenly, you think whoever the lead this time, next year could be all flip-flop, because suddenly they need to do more because this team's managed to work out a way of doing better.
Yeah. So there we are. So there's our little plug for SailGP trying to go in Australia on the 17th, 18th of December. Good fun. And if you can't find it on your TV, we have found it on a certain channel called YouTube.
Look, it's one of those things where
you can find it.
You can find it anywhere. There's all the social medias out there. You can put it's out there. It's in the world,
and it's exciting.
And it's something new. It's something different, which is all important in sport because you get the same old. And they're trying to do something different, but they're also trying to be, I wouldn't say clever about it, but they're trying to raise awareness through this sport.
But they are being very different with this sustainability, trying to get something else going, which is sort of quite good. If they can get this going with a relationship to other sports, then all sorts of things can happen. I've mentioned we could do football, but it's not just going to be football. It's going to be, well, for the British, I suppose it's going to be cricket. That's worldwide. Other than baseball, we don't mention baseball because we do play baseball in this country, don't we? It's the girls play. It's called rounders.
Yeah, I know. Yes,
yeah.
yes.
Okay. Always upsets a few people when I say that, especially my American friends. Well, they're not friends after I've said it, but still. But relationships to other sports, then we can get it into all the sports like, well, first of all, Formula E, which would get rid of a lot of the petrol.
Well, Formula E has got rid of all petrol because it's running on electricity and batteries. But if you run the league as a side league, because they...
Well, yeah, what I was going to go on to say there is the racing cars may be electric, but how do they get to the different parts of the world where they're going to race? Are there transporters, for instance, those lorries, are they sustainable and electric? If they ship things, how are they getting there?
Yeah, because it's one of those controversies. We've got this electric car. Unfortunately, the electricity, of course, was made by burning fossil fuels. So that's not, the electricity isn't clean or green. Yes, I've got a green car, but unfortunately, all the materials that we used to make the car, they were sort of really expensive and sort of, exotic. And so it used lots of resources and lots of time, and made lots of, I'd say, harmful waste, but it can't just be normal waste in making that. And sort of,
So this is where this sustainability impact comes in, because it would affect the whole team. So it doesn't matter whether you have an electric car or not. It depends really whether you manage to charge it up using renewable energy.
Yeah. And suddenly you could find that out in the middle of a field, they might have to plug it into one of these solar stations, or I say solar panel areas, for solar farms. There you go. and they might have to then literally cart it down, and that might change the thing, because it's sort of saying, they are then powered by the sun and powered by things, and it just makes more sense if you're going to go down this Formula E, this is environmental sort of sustainable route. If you do a little bit, you go great, well done, congratulations, clap, pat on the back sort of thing.
But you've got to do a lot more.
But if you go a lot further, you might actually make a much bigger difference, which might actually change how things go.
So, for instance, if you went to visit McLaren's sort of building in the UK, Lotus's, any of the different teams, you'd find that they've got a solar wind farm there so they could charge all their cars and do it sustainably. You'd find that the canteens would have different forms of food out there because they're trying to work on more sustainable, more eco-friendly sort of feeding of the staff. You'd find that the staff, when they go home, they've nearly all got electric cars to do this, which were charged up, by the way, when they arrived at work on the solar farm or the wind farm.
Yeah.
That's the sort of thing we're trying to sort of think that we need to go ahead and try and do. We've got to make some difference.
Yeah, and we need to get, I wouldn't say change done, but we need to do things now and take, bite the hard bullets and actually make the decision that, right, we're going to do this, or I'm going to do this. And you might find, unfortunately, we can't do it yet. We're going to do it. We'll have to do it in 5 years' time. So it's.
But that's great. If they do it in 5 years' time, they're making a change. They're on their way to doing something. And in not just in 5 years' time, it will suddenly happen, but between now and 5 years, it will gradually improve.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that if something like Formula One, football, cricket, any sport said, right, we're going to do this from now on, then the teams are going to have to start to adapt and start to change and start to put new things in place. And you wouldn't be expecting them to get to 100% straight away, but you would be expecting to see an improvement as we're going along.
Yeah, and that's all. It's inspiring change and sort of understanding that it will take time. This is where you can give them a grace period. You're not saying, right, not this year we're going to do one, but we're going to say for, in say, 20 after the World Cup, the next World Cup is going to be green. That sort of idea, because obviously it's planning for it. But by doing so, you've had to make, you forcibly make people do things, and by unfortunately making them do things, they'll have to. And then you go, well, if we're doing this just for the World Cup, could we not do it for a little bit for lots of the small teams, lots of the things? And you're getting there going, well, since one player on the World Cup team, if they're spread out all over the country, well, could we not make all those teams who they're the World Cups, which then makes it easier for that one player of the World Cup team to be green? Because if his whole team are being green, then it's not sort of, we get to eat the French fries, whereas that guy has to eat the fried bean, whatever, because it's, he's having to do this because it's, penalised because he's on the World Cup team. You want to be able to not penalise, but you want to make change without being...
You've got to try and persuade people, and people don't like change generally. And I think this is one of the failures we had at COP, that countries said, well, we're doing all right doing this, and we could do a little bit of this and a little bit of that because that won't affect us too much. A lot of countries weren't prepared to make major changes because it could cost us some money here. But unless we start all thinking about changing the way we do things, changing the way we basically live, things aren't going to get any better. I talk to many of my students about simple things like phones. And they all go, well, yeah, I've got to have the latest phone. And that's not sustainable, because they laugh at mine because my phone's sort of 2, maybe 3 years old. And how can you cope with a phone that's that old because it hasn't got the latest this, that, and the other? Well, we need to bring that into sport. We need to say that you don't have to have the latest and greatest.
Well, I know for every World Cup, they bring out a new football or football design or whatever. What's wrong with the old one? I know, or more, I know, understand it's got the previous, but could you just have a standard ball? And, don't need to change the line, and just, could that just be the, and
the outfits, all the teams have new outfits.
I can understand.
It's good. It's good to try and change, because you're trying to make people buy more products, and that's trying to keep the team going and giving is making people more money. But then if you made your sports kit out of very sustainable materials, then people would have to buy those sustainable materials. It's changing the way you look at things. Instead of, I'm not saying you have to change changing the kit. By all means do that, but make sure the kit you're selling is of a sustainable variety. And then all the people that are following you will have to buy that same type of kit. And if your idol is eating green beans all the time, well, maybe the kids will start doing that as well.
Yeah, it is doing this, not influence change, but it is how can you influence people into change without them being forced into change? Making the conscious decision, you're saying, making all your football kit from sustainable green clothing, all this stuff. Surely, you're only getting a subscript. You're not getting all the people, but surely that will slowly percolate down that people are buying this, and then that will make it's like the change of buying of electric cars. And you say the rich buy all the electric cars, which then slowly makes the technology cheaper for the poorer person. But
that's me.
Yeah.
That's me, poorer.
Yeah. So to actually be able to buy the electric car that's actually required for change, but it's also mass marketing. It's I can't remember what it's called, but it's like not trickle down economics. That's the wrong way to put it. But it's like trickle down investment or something daft like, who knows? Yeah. New term.
So, I would love to have an electric car. The only problem I have at the moment is it's called money. And I have been good. I've been using my car a lot less, what I have got. But I have to look at, if I replace my car, how much it's actually costing to replace a car. How much, basically, energy, how much raw materials, how much goes into having a new car rather than just actually keeping my old car going. And some of this economics is what's also in that SailGP.
Yeah.
They were looking at some of the new stuff. By replacing some stuff, they can make things better. But actually keeping some of the older stuff, they were actually scoring more points on.
Yeah, because, of course, that's how the score system works. They were saying, instead of reusing, if they reused it, then, of course, they gain the same points double. But because they use it in a row, they actually get a multiplier on the points. It's a lot of complicated maths, but at the end of it, it might impact the world.
So this impact race, we recommend. Well, thank you very much for listening to our Going Green podcast, and we will see you hopefully next week when we have a look at going on holidays.
Ooh.
So and how you're going to do it the eco way. So until then, it's goodbye from me.
And a goodbye from me.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.